Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Today we're going to start off by using some masking paper here. This one happens to be from Simon Says Stamp and I have cut it into 1-inch strips. I often do that instead of using like post-it note tape, or I honestly just use whatever's handy around, and I had the masking paper on my table so that works fine. So I am just masking off the outside a tiny little bit, and then I change my mind, which happens often, and I'm going to mask off just kind of a strip down the middle of my card. Now I was using the black side of my mat because it has the grid lines on it, but now I've turned it over and I have shaded lilac, tumbled glass and cracked pistachio distress oxide inks, and I am just blending them back and forward. I go back and forward between the colors and blend that panel. So I have these two little daisy dies which are from AliExpress, and I have cut these out of the same Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock, and I have these are kind of just outline dies, so I don't need any of the center pieces, so I'm going to remove all of the other pieces other than the die itself. Now I have let my panel dry for a little bit while I was cutting out those other pieces, and that's what it looks like when I'm all finished. Now I want to cut out the exact same flowers out of this panel. I want to keep them within the kind of colored portion of the card because I am going to do some die cut inlay. So when I take it out of my machine, I'm going to flip it upside down because I don't want anything to fall out of the dies. Although these are pretty simple, this kind of makes it easier. So I just put a little bit of the exact same masking paper on the back, which holds everything together. I just press down, and then I'm able to just pop the dies off the top, and everything is still sitting there in place. Then I'm just going to take a little pair of tweezers so that I can lift up that tiny little stem, and I want to keep the petals of the flower in and take out that kind of outline shape because I'm going to replace this with the white one that I die cut just before. So this is just some really simple die cut inlay techniques on kind of like a little block of blended color onto the page. So not too complicated at all. And because I had that little bit of post-it note tape behind it, these are able to just kind of pop in and they stay put. Now what I'm going to do is put another piece of that masking paper just that I was using to blend earlier, and I am going to put it on the front of the panel. So now there's some on the front and the back, and this way I can gently remove the one from the back because now everything that I have in there I want to stay permanent. So I'm going to put some of this really wide, thick, double-sided tape, which I get from AliExpress as well, and I'm going to put this on the back of the card, and that will help me adhere down the foam later. This just keeps everything absolutely stuck in place because I've laid in my plain white die cuts now, so we're good to go. And then I can flip it over and remove the front part. This card was kept super simple. It's a very clean and simple card. Here's another sentiment stamp set that is from AliExpress as well, and I'm just going to use a couple of these to create a little simple sentiment down the side, and it says, "Oh, hi there." And I just feel like this is a really kind of generic sentiment that can be used for lots of different occasions, and I am going to stamp it in the exact same distress oxide in tumbled glass. Now these, it's quite handy to have some sort of stamping platform to stamp when you're stamping with oxides because they are fine, but I find that you definitely need a couple of times to make it nice and perfect. So I'm just taking off the backing of that double-sided tape, and this is just a piece of white fun foam. I get my fun foam from AliExpress as well. You may have somewhere that you're able to buy it at a better price locally, but for me, AliExpress is the best place. And using a little bit of liquid glue to adhere this down to my card front. This nearly finishes it off. I am just going to use a little bit of Nouveau drops, and this is I'm going to use the Sea Breeze color, which is a jewel drop, so it kind of dries transparent with a little sort of tinge of blue. Now I made this card at night time, so I'm sorry that the lighting kind of makes it look like those dots are oval, but they're just perfectly nice wee round drops, and it kind of finishes off the card. So this card was just, as I said, super clean and simple, and the sort of die cut inlay is the focal point. That blended panel really kind of makes it come to life a little bit. So I hope that this is one that you can give a go, but we are going to move on to another one kind of using the same or a similar technique now. So here's the card that we're going to make this time round. And again, I am going to use, this happens to be post-it note tape, and I'm going to do a similar technique where I am going to just mask off, and then I'll swap round to my the part that has all the measurements on it, the grid, so that I can try and get it straight. I'm just going to mask off a little area using that tape, and that is the panel that I will blend just like before. So this time around I am going to be using the Squeeze Lemonade, Shaded Lilac and Worn Lipstick. There's lots of really cool combinations that you could do. This one was kind of a slightly more feminine card than the last one. So I've really gone for those colours that hopefully bring that out. And again, I just kind of go back and forward between all of the colours to get the right blend that I want and try and make it as smooth as I can. You'll naturally find that some colours tend to blend nicer than others, but yeah, they're pretty good. And the oxides definitely, in my opinion, make it easier. This shaded lilac one is pretty light, so I'm going to add plenty of that one to kind of make it match the other two colours that are on there. But I have in general kind of kept these colours fairly light. I didn't want kind of like a really heavy coating of it. So you'll see me often blotting off down the bottom there. That's that spare piece of paper, just to make sure that I don't get like a big chunk of ink where I don't necessarily want it. So I'm done and dusted there. I'm just going to wait for it to dry. I'm going to put the panel aside for a bit whilst I work on putting together the little flowers for this card. So I have cut out all these, this little trio of flowers just in plain white cardstock. And this little trio of flowers is from AliExpress, so I will do my best to link it down below if I can find them for you. And I'm just using some liquid glue to pile them up, all three of them on top of each other, and I have got 7 of them all together. I am using the Worn Lipstick colour just to give the edges a really light shading. Now, it's kind of hard to see here, but when you put them on the card, it does make quite a difference. Like, it makes them stand out. You can see there, it makes it stand out really nicely against the rest of the white. So I've done that to all of them. Here's the last ones that I'm just finishing off, and then I just kind of ever so slightly curl them back up again, because they kind of end up curling downwards from the inking just a little bit. And I have these enamel dots, which are kind of a matte kind, and I will link these. These are from Ali as well, and I have heaps of their dots, their enamel dots. They are just fabulous. I've been really enjoying them, and they make the perfect center to these flowers, I think. I forgot to ink that one up. So just adding in the dots, and I think I only need 6 for this project. You can see I have a few of the enamel dots. So I've let the panel dry, and now I'm just going to remove all of the post-it note tape, and this looks pretty good. I love when you remove the tape. It kind of feels like a big reveal, and it looks really pretty and clean. I like those straight edges. And again, I'm going to put it into my MISTI just because once I've done this hard work, I don't want to mess it up. And this is the stamp set that I'm going to be using. Again, it's from Ali, and I'm just kind of using this stem, I guess, for the flowers. I'm just going to mask off that bottom piece there because I don't want to get it down beneath the kind of blended panel. And so I'm just going to ink this up in some VersaFine Onyx black ink, which is just a nice dark black ink, and stamp it a couple of times so that it's nice and dark. Now I'm going to take it out of my MISTI to add on the next part. I would like some leaves for my flowers, and I have this stamp set here, and I honestly just went through my stash and found what I thought looked like a good leaf. It's kind of the right size, I think, and I'm just going to stamp some on using just a normal plain acrylic block, and some of them will be slightly hidden, but in general I just think it kind of bulks out the image a little bit. So from there, I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says, "The happiest of birthdays to you." And again, I'm just going to use exactly the same black ink just so that the card is nice and cohesive. and stamp it again a couple of times just to make sure I get everything covered. And then this is the part where I'm going to put it all together. So again, I'm just going to use liquid glue to add it onto my card base. My card base is 110 pound Nina Solar White. And this is just, yeah, the finishing touches. Adding on the flowers, and some of them kind of like bunch up together a little bit, so I just find a nice way to pop them in, or if there's a little bit of ink that you want to hide, this is your chance. And yeah, you just add one to each of the little stems that is already there, I guess. So I hope you enjoyed the couple of ways that we've kind of done this little block of colour today in both of these cards. The first one is super clean and simple, and the second one is just a tiny little step up. So that was the couple of cards. Yeah, I guess let me know if you liked seeing kind of a couple of cards per video, or what you like to focus on. But anyway, I will see you in the next video, and thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks. Bye.